Trudeau appointing his longtime family friend David Johnston to look into it. David Johnston, who was at the Trudeau Foundation, which took a Chinese grant. I mean, it's all in the family. It's a club, and you are not invited to that club. David Johnston, as we showed you the other day, he didn't want to recuse himself. He said he didn't have to because he's so trustworthy. And to prove it, he had a former Supreme Court judge write him a secret letter to prove it. I'm serious, the letter was secret, but take his word for it. Oh yeah, that Supreme Court judge is his old friend too, and he just happens to have been with the Trudeau Foundation too. It's a club. It's all in the family. Now, some reporters who normally shill for Trudeau just can't control their gag reflex here. I mean, even the Toronto Star says a public inquiry is needed when the Red Star thinks Trudeau is wrong and is willing to say it. You know there's a problem. Hey, here's David Johnston the other day trying to downplay his relationship with Trudeau. I mean, sure, they went skiing all the time. They're two families. They were longtime friends, lifelong friends. But, I mean, really, who amongst us hasn't just bumped into the Trudeaus on the ski hill from time to time? It was nothing unusual.
Part of the issue around having to believe what you are saying today is around your credibility.
Yes.
I'm not sure if you expected this to happen. Obviously, the allegations, particularly from the Conservative leader, that you are a friend of Justin Trudeau's family, you are a member of the Trudeau Foundation. Should you have anticipated that, Mr. Johnston, that you would be attacked in that way and that this might undermine the credibility of what you've offered today?
No, I did not anticipate that my credibility or my impartiality or integrity would be attacked. The facts are, with respect to a friend of the Prime Minister, when his family returned to Montreal, we knew his father, and we had a condo at the slopes of Mont Tremblant, about 100 meters from the ski trail. Mr. Trudeau Sr. and his three boys had a country home about 50 kilometers away in Val-Morin. On 5 different occasions over 2 or 3 years, his 3 boys and our 5 daughters skied together in the mountain because he could park his car at our condo and we'd ski out to the mountain. On one of those 5 occasions, he had to go back to Montreal, and I dropped the boys off at their mother's home and their husband about 10 kilometers away. So we were not neighbors. That was the contact with the current Prime Minister.
Yeah, I don't think that actually disproved the allegation, David. He literally mocked a reporter for suggesting they were friends. He said that Trudeau was his so-called friend. Really?
Well, let me respond by stating basic facts. First of all, my friendship with the current Prime Minister. When our children, 5, were ages 7 to 12, we had a condo at the foot of Mont Tremblant. I knew Mr. Trudeau's father. He had a country home about 50 kilometers away in Val-Morin. On, I think, 5 occasions over several years, he and his 3 sons came and parked their car at our parking lot outside our condo, and we skied. On one of those 5 occasions or so, he had to leave early to get back to Montreal, and on that occasion, I drove the 3 sons over to their mother's home, country home, which was about 10 kilometers present. Those are the so-called neighborhoods. My friendship with the current Prime Minister was based only on a few skiing expeditions with my children. He was a student at McGill where I was principal, and amongst about 20,000 students, I would see him from time to time. In that period of time, until he became a Liberal member of Parliament, and I was Governor General, I had no meetings with Mr. Trudeau, Mr. Justin Trudeau. I had no letters that I can recall, no telephone calls. The only occasion I recall meeting him in that period of 40 years was at the funeral of his father, which my wife and I attended. So there was no interaction with respect to the current Prime Minister of a friendly kind, other than the respect I have for a graduate of McGill University. And my only real contact occurred when he became an elected member of Parliament and I held the office of Governor General. Those are the facts with the so-called friendship and the skiing.
Is that true? Here's a great video that Pierre Poilievre put out about the so-called friends part.
and the family have become good friends, and our friendship with Mr. Trudeau goes back to children's days when our 5 daughters and he and his 2 brothers skied together at Mont Tremblant.
Yeah, tell us a little more of that, because a lot of Canadians don't realize that you, in fact, were a very good friend of Pierre Elliott Trudeau, and that your family, you knew all the Trudeau kids when they were growing up.
I guess it shows what a small country Canada is, but when Mr. Trudeau left politics, came back to Montreal, his house was just on the edge of the McGill campus, and I and the rector of the University of Montreal were working very hard for him to return to the University of Montreal Faculty of Law, where he'd been a constitutional law professor, and to have a joint appointment to McGill. His 3 boys were the same age as our 5 daughters, so we were kind of a ski party from time to time at Mont Tremblant, where we have a place and would ski on weekends. So we got to know the children, and our friendship, our relationship was really built out of childhood exchanges. And our children had enormous respect for Mr. Trudeau Sr. He was a wonderful father and very good with children. He would lead them into discussions that would be let's talk about how many functioning democracies there are in the world, for example. This was with teenagers. It was just great.
Yeah, I think they're more than just so-called friends. That's from David Johnston's own mouth. And he looked at reporters straight in the eyes, and he lied the other day. He lied like a Trudeau family member lies. Isn't that something? The old Governor General, the old reliable guy trusted by both sides, he has sullied himself, dirtied himself. He's in his 80s now. I think he's 81. He should be spending his time with his grandchildren. He should be enjoying the golden years of his life after a life of service, but he's torching his life's reputation and his family name for what? To protect Trudeau because he took dirty money? Or maybe Johnston's in on it too. I mean, Johnston continued to do business with Communist China even after he was Governor General. Why would he keep in touch with them? What kind of business did he have with them? Which side was he working for, Canada or China? Why wasn't that in his report? Well, it's like putting OJ in charge of finding the real killers. That's David Johnston. He looks good, which is his main use to Trudeau, because he lies like a rug. Which makes me think of another shill for the Chinese Communist Party, Beverly McLaughlin, the former Chief Justice of the Canadian Supreme Court. She's a great liberal. I don't know if you recall, she's the one who really got the ball rolling, denouncing Canada as being a genocidal state. She's the one who started that. Trudeau loved it and embraced it. He calls us genocidal all the time. Well, she retired, and like Johnston and Frank Iacobici, the former justice who wrote the secret letter to Johnston, Beverly McLaughlin thought she would cash in, which is pretty gross. And she went to China. Beverly McLaughlin actually went to China to sit on the final court of appeal in Hong Kong as a judge. Now, she went there when Hong Kong was free. But when China took over Hong Kong and brutally shut down its democracy and political dissent and shut down independent media and arrested peaceful protesters, most of the other foreign judges, the Brits, on that court resigned in protest. They resigned because they refused to work for a dictatorship. They resigned to make a stand, to make a point, to show that China is not fair or free. Not our Beverly. She positively said that that was her time to shine. She didn't have to share the spotlight with those Brits anymore. She was delighted to stay on to enforce Xi Jinping's brutality in Hong Kong. Funny, though, it's really odd. She was quick to denounce Canada as being a genocidal state, but she has yet to say the same thing about her new adopted country, which actually has perpetrated a genocide against Uyghurs and other minorities. You know, for years we were told to look up to these elites. I remember in law school being told to look up to her. Look up to the chief judge for sure. Look up to the governor general for sure. Oh, and they wear fancy robes sometimes, don't they? And their regalia and their pomp and circumstance. They're better than you, really. They're better people than you. They're higher on the hierarchy. Know your place, okay? They look better than you. They sound better than you. They dress better than you. They earn better than you, even though it's all from the public trough, so are they really earning it? So understand they are morally better than you. Obey them when they make laws from the courts, not the parliaments. Accept it when they want to censor Trudeau's enemies, like Johnston censored Rebel News. Stop asking questions about corruption when it embarrasses Trudeau and his cronies and family friends. You know what? They are not better than you and me. In fact, I think they're worse. That was an excerpt from the Ezra Levant show. I'm Ezra Levant. Every weekday, I do a monologue about the topic of the day. Then I interview a fascinating guest either in studio or via Skype. And then I read your mail, whether it's fan mail or hate mail, which is sometimes even more interesting. This is on our premium service, though, called Rebel News Plus. Go to rebelnewsplus.com. It's $8 a month or less if you buy a whole year in advance. You get my show every weeknight, plus Sheila Gunn Reid's show every week. It's called The Gun Show. It's pretty amazing. You know, we rely on you because we do not take a dime from the government. In Canada, that makes us almost unique. So please help us out and help yourself to some great journalism at rebelnewsplus.com.